All right, well, welcome everybody once again to the Nefesh podcast. This is episode 48. I'm Sandy Jo Leonard, and if you're new to the podcast, the word Nefesh, it is just the Hebrew word for soul. And so this podcast, as well as where I am focusing right now, is all on the soul and spiritual formation. And I want to encourage you to go check out my website, thespiritualreformation.com. So thespiritualreformation.com. And it's there to provide resources for your soul and spiritual development, whether it's one-on-one coaching or live group classes or courses that you can purchase and download. The goal is to help come alongside you and encourage your growth and your spiritual formation process. And in this episode 48, we're going to be talking about troublemakers and the soul. And I think I have brought along one of the best troublemakers. This is no stranger. She is no stranger to our podcast, Miss Adrianna Rubio. Welcome.
Thank you. Maybe. I don't know if I'm complimented by that introduction, but it's okay. You're not wrong. It's just
I'm not wrong. And as I was thinking about the podcast this week, I texted you earlier, and I was like, "Hey, so do you want to come on my podcast? I'm talking about troublemakers." And you're like, "Well, why did you think of me?"
I was like, no. Sorry if I'm causing any trouble, but no, I'm kidding.
But I've been thinking a lot about, and I've even shared recently about Martin Luther and the Protestant Reformation, and just back through history, even going back to Jesus. Obviously, he is the measure and the standard of everything, but he really was a troublemaker to everybody around him, except for the people that he was healing and feeding and the disciples. But to the religious leaders, the establishment at that time, he caused trouble. He wasn't letting things lay. He wasn't just saying everything is good, just keep doing what you're doing, all is good. I'm just going to go hang out on the cross for, a little bit and die and then, everything's good. No, he disrupted the system. And I feel like, so often that whether it's just daily life, our work, the church, we get so comfortable, we just get caught up in the day-to-day and the mundane, that we don't always deal with things that need to be dealt with. We don't like to, right? We don't always stand up for the things that we need to stand up for. We just kind of get into a groove, and especially we don't like standing out. Now, you've had some experience standing out.
Well, I choose to stand out sometimes, so you can't see me, but I currently have blonde hair.
And green.
Hold on.
Okay, sorry.
So, I'm naturally a brunette, Puerto Rican. Woo-woo, pride.
New York, Puerto Rican.
New Yorican, yes. So I have the classic New Yorican blonde because our hair doesn't really it's hard to get it like they're really pretty, like natural looking blonde. It's not natural looking, and I'm totally okay with that. Okay. But I also wanted blue hair, so I put a section of my hair that was blue, and then it's slowly kind of washed out, so now it's more green. It really is giving mermaid vibes. But you know what? That's fine. We'll redo it eventually, or I'll pick a new color. I just had purple, I've had red, I've had green, I've had blue, I've had pink. I tried pink. Anyways.
And so with the hair color, is that your way of trying to stand out and make yourself known?
It's not so much like, look at me, I'm different. It's more so much like, look at me, I don't care what you think. It's kind of this
I'm
rebellious.
And I don't care what you think.
I'm different because I don't care. Kind of. Or just like, it looks cool and I want, like, it looks, when I straightened it and I first had the blue, it was giving rocker, like punk rock, Avril Lavigne, she was a skater. No, he was a skater boy. She said, "See you later, boy." Remember that song? Anyways,
no, I do.
It was one of those back in the day. Like, this is like, oh, I've always wanted to do this. And now that I'm an adult, I'm like, I'm going to do whatever I want.
Especially because you grew up in a church that did not allow you to do anything with your hair. Wasn't it like long all the way down to your
down to my
back?
waist.
Wow.
Curly, big, down, all the way down here. Yeah.
How in the world did you I mean, I have long curly hair, but it's not quite that long. I did when I was a kid, but it was a lot shorter. Well, not that much shorter than I am today, but still shorter, still shorter, and that's a lot of hair, right?
Yeah, we just tied it in a bun and played outside. Got lice a few times. You know how it goes. It was a lot to manage as a child, but I mean, you know, you deal with it. And then once I got old enough, I chopped it all off, and then.
But you grew up in a more, we've talked about it before, a much more constricted and rigid environment in your church background.
Right.
And I've shared this before. I think I've shared it on some of the podcasts, and I know I just shared it with you. But you remind me of this movie, Simon Birch, and it's a like early 2000s, late 90s movie. Ashley Judd is in it. And there's this little guy who has some type of deformity or disability, and so he's shorter than normal. And he's one of those who kind of causes trouble, not because he tries to, he asks questions, he puts himself out there. He you know, at one point it shows a scene of him in Sunday school, and I don't know if they're talking about creation or evolution or something, but the teacher is ignoring him and his questions, and finally he stands up on the chair, and the teacher is like yelling at him, but he's just wanting to ask. He's just wanting to know.
Right.
That's how I picture you growing up. And in fact, I can't even picture you growing up in that church because you're way too much of a troublemaker. Did you constantly get in trouble?
Okay, so, well, it depends on your definition of trouble. No. There was like, sometimes my mom would just tell me to like shush me, or like just hush because you're doing too much. Like, you know, you're just asking too many questions, or like, this is not the time to, like, we agree with you as the adult. Maybe we agree with you, but we all know, like, we don't talk about that. So don't talk about that right now,
okay.
Which made me believe, like, you guys don't know what you're doing. I can't wait to be an adult because I know how to be an adult. Like, you know, I just really had no, I just assumed adults were confused and they needed me to help them, show them the way.
You're not wrong, right?
Yeah, I wasn't wrong. I just, you know, but I definitely had a lot of questions, especially when what they're telling you. So the way that it was in my church, they would say certain things that were very general statements just to, you know, get kids to stop asking questions, or, you know, like just generally teach something like say women wearing pants. Like, we don't wear pants. Well, why? Well, how do you teach a 6-year-old that putting on jeans will accentuate your curves, and then like men will be looking, you're not going to say that, right? So it's just like,
is that the reason? I guess I've never really thought about it.
It's a modesty thing.
That's the reason?
It's to be modest. You would wear a dress.
Wow.
And so it's fine. Modesty is not wrong, but your definition of modesty, right? So as a little girl who's running around in dresses, you're telling me I can't wear pants, but then if I want to ride my bike, it's like, well, go put on some shorts. And I'm like, if I could just wear pants. So I'm not
the motto of your life is, I just want to wear pants.
No, it just didn't make sense to me because I'm like, okay, you want me to wear shorts to cover up underneath my skirt, but then I have to wear, I mean, I tried to get away with like skirts, but that
still didn't
First
work.
of all, it was not fashionable. Number one. Number two, it's still shorts in the back, so it was still inappropriate. We couldn't wear them. But the idea was, as a kid, it's just kind of like, girls don't wear pants, and then you're also taught when you do bad things, you go to hell. Like, that was also part of the general teaching. So I'm thinking wearing pants sends me to hell.
Wow.
Because, you know, you're just putting puzzle pieces together.
Right.
But then we're in the car, and we had one of those CDs. For those of you that don't know, a CD. No, I'm kidding. But we had the CD case, and you know how, like, you open it, and the front cover comes out when you open it, you unfold it, you have all the lyrics
Pictures
and everything.
And
Very
all that.
cool.
Yeah.
My graphic designer love of layouts
Right.
started at that young age. Like, wow, look at how they laid all this out. Anyways, they would do photo shoots, right? The singers, and they'd have all the different poses because they're in the whole pamphlet.
Right.
We had this one girl, and she sang Jesus music, loved Jesus, sang all the songs, worship. It's worship stuff. But she was in jeans, and I'm sitting here like, this poor girl is going to hell, and she's singing about Jesus, but she's wearing pants.
Wow.
So how can you really love Jesus, right?
How old were you at the time?
Oh, I don't know. younger than 10.
Wow.
I was definitely younger than 10. And I'm sitting there like, okay. But then it's like, wait a minute.
Wow.
Why are we listening to this?
Yes.
Isn't this like blasphemy or something?
She's wearing jeans.
It's just hypocritical. So my little brain is trying to put pieces together, and I really wanted everything to be black and white.
Right.
Because they made it seem
kids,
black and white.
Well, kids have that understanding. That's just how they develop. So their moral development, kids, all kids, they have a certain black and white, right or wrong understanding of the world, right? So they'll identify if somebody's wearing a police uniform, even if it's not a policeman, even if it's a bad person, they'll automatically think that's a good guy. And then if somebody's wearing like a prison uniform, that's automatically a bad guy.
Right.
Well, those are things that we actually, moral development says that we're actually supposed to grow out of that. And it's a whole other topic, and it's going into the faith
next
stages.
Time
next time. The stages of faith talk about that is like stage 1 or stage 2 of our faith stage, and yet there's some churches, namely that one and others,
stay in that,
they stay in that very black and white. It's either right or wrong. It's a do and don't type of culture, legalism, right? And so for you, of course, that's what your mind is connecting. She's wearing jeans.
You told me jeans are bad.
Therefore,
jeans are bad, so she's bad.
Right.
Or she doesn't know that she's going to hell. Maybe no one told her. I don't know. But either way, why are we listening to her music? Right? Because she's Spanish and she sings in English and Spanish. And it's like, ooh.
Did you ask your parents?
I don't remember if I asked or if I just internally said, they obviously lied to me.
Wow.
Someone's lying. Or we're, listening to this music and it's not okay.
Right.
I don't remember ever asking. I should ask my mom. She'll probably tell me yes, and I ignored you. Yes, but we didn't know what to answer, so we just hushed you. Just listen to the songs, honey. That's it. So it was hard to understand when you're told one thing, but then you see something else. I mean, there was a church that was up the street from our church that was more, quote unquote, liberal, because they would wear dresses to church, but outside of church, they could wear pants. It was just like when you enter the house of the Lord, you wear a dress so you're not, distracting anybody with those tight clothes. Wear
those jeans.
Those jeans are such a distraction. So you wear your nice dresses and whatever at the church on Sunday. But during the week, wear whatever you want because, you're out in the yard, you're at work, you're doing errands, whatever. So, and they also could cut their hair, wear makeup, have earrings. So they were like, but their church service was just like ours.
Wow.
We sang the same songs. It was like the same beliefs except for the external. How you present yourself.
Sure.
Which for me, it was like, I was confused.
Yes.
Because you're, on one side, it's like, wouldn't you want to bring your best to God? So like, you would want to do your hair and your makeup and like, present yourself pretty, quote unquote, be prettier, right? Like you're, what society says is like you now have tried. But then you have a church of people that look like they're not trying. And I'm like, is this really God's best? You can't comb your hair? Like what? You know what I mean? So it just was like, my hair was the only thing I had.
You might as well just like put a bag over your head.
There were some churches that wore the little veils.
The veil.
That, we would just call them doilies. But they would put that on. Thank God my church is not one of those. But it was almost in like, you're so humble, but you're like proud of it.
Yeah, right.
Which takes away.
I think you were telling me, or telling us about one doily that was all bedazzled?
Yes, there was a lady I saw, hers had rhinestones on it. And I was like, I think this takes away from what you're trying to say.
We will do anything to try to make anything look good.
Which I think that because that's our nature, especially like as women, like you want to feel good. Pretty. You want to feel good. So like new clothes, nice new haircut, or you get your hair styled or whatever, earrings, makeup, whatever the thing is, it makes you feel good. Right. So when I feel good, then it's like, I think God feels good that I feel good. Sure. You know what I mean?
So did you ever like stand up in church and protest that, or did you do all your protesting at home, which never got you anywhere?
Not until I was 20, but I'm just kidding.
At 20, somehow you reached a point where
for myself.
You put on those jeans and you walked yourself.
I just wore them to the house and was like, I bought myself jeans, Mom. I don't know what you're going to do about it. Sorry, but also.
Was there ever a time in church where you got in trouble, or you kind of outwardly protested some of the harsh stuff?
Well, okay, so I grew up in this church 0 to 20.
Your grandmother started the church,
yeah,
right?
She did. So I was basically just there from birth.
Right.
I'm in the church. So they knew me.
Okay.
And I had the same pastor. He became the lead pastor when I was 1.
Okay.
So he was there the whole time.
Whole
So they
life.
saw me in diapers. They watched me grow up. Saw all the versions of me, right? All the different growth, just what I went through. So me as a kid, I didn't necessarily care as much about the pants and all that, right? As like a little kid. It didn't make sense to me, like riding my bike with shorts. That didn't make sense, but it was fine. It's really more the teen years where it's like, I want to express myself through my clothing.
Right.
And you can't tell me what to wear, Mom. I'm going to pick my own clothes out, whatever. But when I was a kid, like 7, 8, younger, I remember there was one time we were in Sunday school and or like a kid's service, whatever. The pastor was preaching about the 10 Commandments. And I just asked because I like to challenge. I don't know why, but it's just
You
me.
just have a curious mind.
I asked if the 10 Commandments, there's one of them that says, don't steal. And then there's one that says, honor your mother and father. I asked a question, what if my mom asked me to steal something? Like, which one?
Right.
Do I follow it in number order? Like, this one's number 5, but this one's number 8.
Therefore, it's more important.
So,
right.
yeah, he never answered me. It was one of those scenarios of like, we'll talk after class, and then never had the conversation. And inside of me, it was like, you don't think. First of all, there's two sides. You don't think my question is valid, like I'm not being heard.
Right.
/ you probably don't know what you're doing.
Which of those did you feel like was more true? Did you feel like, okay, he's not really hearing me and doesn't care, or he doesn't know the answer?
As time went on, there was more and more things that I'd be like, I don't think that these adults know why they believe what they believe.
Wow.
They're telling us what this is what the Bible says.
Right.
But I'm like, where? Right. And then they would give a verse that could like kind of sort of maybe mean that. And I'm
Right.
like, well, that's not what that says.
Right.
You're making.
So how did they respond to that? When they present you a verse, something about modesty, it doesn't say anything about jeans, because jeans did not exist
Right.
in the Bible, and they give you this verse, and what do? And you say this isn't in there. How do they respond?
Obedience over sacrifice.
Wow, they just drop that verse right on you.
What is this church's rules? God would be more pleased that you're following in this church.
That you're
obedient, you're going to this church, so
that you're
follow
obedient
the
to the authorities within the church.
Yeah.
Because in the Old Testament it says obedience is better than sacrifice.
Right. So it's not about being right or wrong at that point, because once we've lost the argument, it's
Right.
like, well, we're the boss.
Well, right, and that's
We're adults and you're a child.
and that absolutely happens.
What is that
a
from
lot.
Matilda? And it's like, I'm big and you're small, and I'm right and you're wrong. That's what it felt like. Okay, Mrs. Trenchwell. But it really felt like, all right, so, and then because there's always this like sin conscious, you're going to go to hell every 2 seconds, there's this side of me that's like, am I trying to be right? Or do I really want to honor God? And should I just obey? Which is kind of what I did in my later 20s. Like, all right, you win.
So for you, it wasn't, and I think that's an important part of your personality, and even your spiritual, your spirituality, that you're not out there being this rebellious person for the sake of being rebellious, or not at all. It doesn't sound like you were, like you actually followed the rules, but there was that conscience part of you that was saying, I really don't want to go to hell. I really don't want to disobey God. So am I just challenging, or is this really right? And it's that age. I mean, again, in the whole development process, teenagers, when they get to that time, they are challenging. They're challenging everything. And especially in institutions where it's not a healthy dynamic, family, church, whatever, and there aren't good reasons for why you're doing something, it just only fuels more of that rebellion, right?
And it made me part of it made me like, okay, when I'm an adult, then I'll make decisions and I'll do things different.
Right.
But let's just get through whatever years we have left. You know, when I live here, when I have my own house, then I can, you know, do what I want. But like, and it's partially like, as you grow up, I had one of my pastors always said this, like, it's hard for teenagers turning into their 20s when they still live at home or whatever.
Right.
It can be a lot of tension because you want to be the new like king or queen, but there's already a king and queen of this house, right? This castle.
Right.
So you're now like, well, I'm an adult, and it's like, but you're not the adult.
Right.
This is not your house.
Right.
Your mom or your dad still makes the rules,
Right.
and so then it's like, you should probably move out if you're going to be fighting them. But when you're, especially when you're younger, you think you know everything. So you're like, mom doesn't know what she's doing.
Right.
Dad doesn't know. I should tell them that they need to, because we're so enlightened.
Well, and let me just say, you're a whole lot more enlightened than others. By the way, she has a 136 IQ. I just want to throw that out there. And if you don't know what that means she's incredibly smart. So I can picture you at 5 or 6 or even at 2, like telling people.
Like Matilda.
Yeah, like telling people what to do, because you may know exactly what to do and they're not listening.
I guess. But there's this level of like, I might be right.
Yeah.
But this is still their house,
Right.
and these are still their rules.
Right.
And so even when I started wearing jeans, I remember I got into a fight with my mom. Mom, if you're listening, don't worry, I still love you. But we got into like an argument because I got a new job and I
Right.
started going to a new church,
Right.
and I could wear pants, and the
Right.
church that I went to was totally fine with it.
Yeah.
So I was not being disobedient anymore.
You could say, this church allows me to wear pants.
Yeah.
So I can wear pants because I'm under that authority, but you're still living at home.
Correct.
So,
So my argument was, well, if you want me to move out, I can.
wow.
Which, of course,
It's pants.
I-
It's pants or moving out.
It was very
serious.
dramatic.
You were serious about wearing the pants.
I was like, I just want to wear pants. And I know my mom obviously would not ever kick me out of the
Right.
house over pants, but
Right.
she was so upset, like, this is not how we raised you. Like, this is
Right.
not, you don't need to be doing this.
Right.
And it's like, cool, but what's more important to you? Seeing me come home every night, knowing that I'm safe, knowing that I'm
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
or me trying to go find a roommate somewhere.
Yeah.
I had friends that I could be like, hey, can I crash
Sure.
on your couch and whatever. I mean, I'm 20.
Sure.
My mom's like, no, you will not leave this house. It's like, at that point, it's like, just wear your pants and whatever, because it's not that big of a deal.
Right.
But
Which is really good. Like, your parents, I'm really glad that was their response, because
Yeah.
it absolutely could have gone the other way. I mean,
Yeah.
there are countless stories of such parents who are so rigid in whether it's religious rules or other things that they would have kicked their kid
Right.
out for that.
And I think, like, my mom's dad was very strict, and so she didn't want to be
Right.
that way with us. Like, she still was like, hey, just follow the rules. Like, why can't you just follow the rules? But
Right.
because I'm not the rule follower like that. I am to a certain extent, right? Like,
But you just want to know that there's a reason
It has to
behind the
make
rule.
sense.
If there's no reason behind the rule, why am I following this rule?
Yeah.
So, okay, in a situation like, let's say, like a really big one, this is going to be hard because neither of us have experienced this, but like segregation
Right.
in the South, in the United States, in the 1960s, and you got people like, or 1950s, you got people like Rosa Parks, and the famous story is
Right.
that this woman, back in the time of segregation, if you were a black person, you had to sit on the back of the bus. There was a special place for you on the public transportation, on the bus. And even if, so there was a certain section that was just for you, but if there were no seats available anywhere, you had to give up your seat for a white person who would then come and take your seat. Even if you were a little old lady or a woman or a pregnant woman,
Right.
you had to always give up your seat for a white person, like they came first. And so the famously, one day she says, no,
yeah, I'm not doing it.
I'm not going to give up my seat for a white person. What is going on is wrong. And of course, this is at the time when tension is really building to push back against segregation. Black people had their own schools. They had their own churches. They were not allowed to, they had their own bathrooms, own water fountains. In the South, segregation was such an extreme thing that they were second-class citizens.
Yeah.
They weren't getting good education. They didn't have access to the things that, just even poor white people did.
Right.
And so tension was mounting and building to say, no, that everybody is the same, everybody should have equal access to everything. This one woman causes, it's almost, one of the tipping points of segregation. And all she does was not give up her seat. She refuses to give up her seat on the bus. What do you do in situations? I mean, and especially if you were a hardcore segregationist at the time, you would call her a troublemaker, right?
Yeah.
Why don't you just give up your seat? Or maybe there were even some black people, African Americans at the time, who thought, maybe we just continue to wait it out until this generation of white people,
Right.
maybe we shouldn't cause so much trouble.
Yeah.
And her response was just to say, this isn't right. I'm not going to give up my seat. And it continues or builds into the civil rights movement. What do we do in situations that are wrong? So it was a law.
Right.
But it was a bad law. Segregation was law across the South. It allowed people to discriminate against black people.
Yeah.
But it was a wrong law, right? So in your situation, and even in my situation, where things are maybe legal but wrong, those are the things that really build, I think, tension for us, especially as Christians, right?
Yeah.
And not even just Christians, everybody who has a conscience. Like, how do we respond in those types of situations?
I mean, I think her example is good because, like you say, she's a troublemaker, but she didn't yell, she didn't scream, at least from what we're told, right? We weren't there.
Right.
But it sounded like she just was like, I'm not going to get up.
Right.
So it's not so much what she did, but what she didn't do.
Right.
Right? So that's...
But she broke the law.
She broke the law. So, rules were made to be broken. I'm just kidding.
Said
are.
like a true troublemaker.
It's not, but I think that there's a level of, I don't know if it's, I guess, just like personality or whatever, but like the challenging, like, well, why do we do that? Even me, like, anytime I go to a new job or a new place, I'm just like, new church, I'm just like, so why are we, I just like to know why.
Right.
Because if the response, which it typically is like, oh, we've always done it this way.
Right.
Then that triggers something in me to be like, you're just the blind leading the blind. No one's asking questions because I guess because I felt so controlled as a kid, and I felt like I couldn't trust people.
Right.
I still have trust issues where I feel like you might not be the best person to like lead me, or that might be how you're running your company right now, but maybe we can reevaluate and have new and fresh ideas. And just, I want to bring change because I always think that there's a way to do something better.
Right.
There's new technology that comes out every weekend. There's something new that we could probably let's just.
Right.
And sometimes you evaluate and you say, you know what? Nope, this is the best way to do it. Cool.
But especially if there is no good reason for it being done a certain way, or if how it's being done is harmful.
Right. It's like, ask the questions. But here's the thing, like the majority of people are very kind of, I don't know how to say it in like
a nice way,
not offensive way, but like,
you can tell us we're all dumb. I mean, we don't.
It's not
majority
dumb.
of us do not have.
That is not what
do
I'm
not
saying.
have a 136 IQ. So I mean,
I want to say the word is sanguine.
Sanguine. Okay.
I don't know if that's the right word, but there's like this personality test that has like different words, whatever. Basically, you're more
phlegmatic, I think is the term you're wanting.
Maybe that's that
just
one.
kind of easygoing, just go with the flow, just
yeah.
relax.
So it's more so, the way I see it is more like leader versus follower, right? So like, I show up to work and it's like, I don't know, I'm just waiting for my boss to tell me what to do. But let's say your boss doesn't come in for like 2 hours. So you just kind of hang out for 2 hours.
Right.
Where it's like, my personality is more of like, well, let me find something to do, right? There's always something to get done. I can reorganize the filing cabinet. You know, like something random. I can check all my emails and delete all the old ones. And there's 1,000 of them in there. Let me go through it. Like, I would find something. I would take more initiative, where the average person, statistics say, would be more willing to wait because of, well, I don't want to cause trouble, or no one told me to go and do this, so they don't want to cause any type of conflict because that makes them uncomfortable.
Or there's a bit of laziness there. Or
Well, you said it, not me.
I mean, and I think we all have it, right?
Yeah.
That there are times when we just don't want to do something, and if we go find something to do, then we have to do it,
Yes.
right? So it's much easier to sit back and just go with the flow, wait till our boss tells us what to do, or
And so those kinds of people would be like, well, the law says that I got to give up my seat, so I'm going to give up my seat. Like, I don't even think that I think there's two sides. There's the people who are like afraid, like, no, I'm going to follow the rules because I'm not trying to get into any trouble.
Right.
I don't need them hurting my family or whoever. Like, I just will do what you ask me to do. And then I think there's the people that are like, I never thought once that I couldn't give up my seat.
wow.
Because why would you think of breaking the rules? Like, these are the rules. We follow them.
Well, and so I feel like part of that, especially when it comes to religion and churches, and I mean that's what I'm familiar with, right? That is a false theology that tells us that we've got to always follow the person who's in charge. We mistakenly refer back to the passage in Scripture where David says, "Don't touch the Lord's. I won't touch the Lord's anointed." That was referring to Saul, first of all, who is a king, right? Very different position than our leaders today.
Yeah.
And there's nowhere else, especially in the New Testament, that it describes leaders, Christian leaders like that. And so we have a really bad theology of obedience without question, where there's no room to. And again, for this fear that I'm going to go to hell if I go against my church or my pastor or my parents, if I say something that I shouldn't say. And it's a lot more systemic, I think, than people realize. And I'll bring up the recent documentary that you and I have talked about, the one on the Duggars. I forget what it's called.
Shiny Happy People.
Shiny Happy People. And just
It's on Prime.
It's on Amazon Prime.
Watch it.
Maybe they'll give us a kickback for promoting it. But the extremes that we'll go to, and I think it's a conditioning. And I think for and obviously not being African American, I don't want to speak for them, but I think so many years of oppression and slavery, and there were times they did try to revolt and push back, but so much around them and so much abuse and the Ku Klux Klan killing them, and they were under such an oppressive system that it may have even they may have thought, I can't fight back. It wouldn't even cross my mind. This is just what I got to do to survive, right?
It's normal for them to be told that they're less than, and you're like, I guess I am, for some people. And then you have the ones that are like, no, we're not. Like, wait a minute.
Or who began to really, again, question and say, we can do something about this, that this isn't right. And I love the fact that if you study the civil rights movement in America, it started in churches. It started with pastors. And there's a little known fact that it actually started even with women like Rosa Parks and others, that they don't get, and there's many more women, and I wish I knew their names today or could share them today, but many more of them who are actually at the forefront of the movement. And but it started with kind of this idea that no, all men are created equal. We're made in the image of God. It doesn't matter our skin color or our position or our lot in life. We all need to be treated respectfully. And it was in those, especially with Dr. King, it was those peaceful forms of protest, right? So it was marching in the streets. It was going into those restaurants and sitting at the whites only counter, and again, not the violent, but the peaceful protest of going against what everybody else said was law. What they couldn't do, right? And it feels like, and especially throughout history, you've got these, quote, troublemakers. And not all troublemakers are good, by the way, because there's quite a few sociopathic troublemakers that we won't mention, and hopefully we can tell the difference. But even going back to Martin Luther, all Martin Luther was trying to do was ask questions. His whole 95 Theses, it was questions, questioning and challenging the abuses within the system. He was not trying to overthrow it. He wasn't trying to establish his own church. He was just you asking, you know, like you asking your mom, but why? Why is it this way? Why is it that way? It seems like, and especially where we're going, you know, the church is headed even today, but institutions, religious institutions, we need a whole lot more troublemakers, whether they have a 136 IQ or not.
You're so annoying. Anyways, no, so what's interesting though is there's another documentary, or like not a documentary, it's like a show that they made about the Underground Railroad.
Yeah.
And it like follows a girl. I only got through the first episode, so let me not even give anything away. But it supposedly follows a girl while she's like a slave and she's going to run away. And it's like how they get to the point of, well, at least what I watched, is all the way up to how they get to the point of like, it's time, we need to go and we need to find our way out of here. And they show one scene, very graphic. So if it's not your thing, it's not an easy watch, especially just because, like, you know that it really happened. Yeah. And also, my brain always tells me, like, this is the most creative that we could be thinking of it ourselves and making it a film or whatever. But it was probably way worse in reality.
Right.
But they were, like, torturing this man, a slave, whipped him, ended up burning him. He was still alive. And they're doing all this stuff. And it's a crazy scene at like a tea party.
Wow.
Like this is their entertainment.
A white tea
like,
party.
Yeah, like the owners of the plantation are sitting there. They have guests over.
Oh my gosh.
It's like we're eating lunch, hanging out under the sun, and there's people whipping him, and you just hear him in the background yelling and screaming. Oh my gosh. So the owner goes to his guest and he's like, hey, you're barely eating your food. Like, how come you're not eating? And the guy's like, well, it's a little difficult for me to sit here and enjoy this meal when there's a man over there who's literally, his body's being ripped to shreds. Like, so you could see that there were some people that they're trying to represent, you know, in the film. Like,
not every white person or even Southern person was for slavery.
And so it was like, there's compassion. Yeah. Maybe he didn't think, you know, he was equal, but like, the man doesn't deserve to be whipped like this, and I'm not going to sit here and eat lunch while he's doing that. And then the owner's response was like, your problem is you're putting man and a colored person in the same, like you're acting like a slave is the same as a man, and they're not. Wow. And so he's trying to convince this guy, like, don't feel bad, just eat your food and whatever. And so then he ends up eating, but you can even see in that scene, it's like, why didn't you stand up and say, no, he's not whatever, he is a man. He just happens to be darker than me, but he deserves to live. He doesn't deserve that. Like,
why didn't he do something?
But you could see he was like, okay, I'm just going to eat the food then, because it's like, I'm on your plantation, like I'm your guest. This is your, I don't know. And I think the majority of people would do that.
Well, and worry then about being ostracized in the community, right?
Everyone else is now going to treat you bad.
Yes. Yeah. So, and this is one of the, you know, sociologists and others can speak to this much better, but the whole ostracizing of people and kicking them out of the community or being outcasts is one of the reasons why we don't want to cause trouble more often. One of the reasons why we don't want to stand up and speak to and address the things that are wrong or care for the people that need to be cared for, because especially in a group setting, even if others feel the same way as you, the likelihood is that they will not stand up and do something, right? Yeah. And so, I mean, I don't know, like in your church, for example, in your church situation, probably most people just left, right?
Well, yeah, so everyone went away to college at 18 and then just never came back. It's like, I'm going away to school, guys, which is always good. Like, education is great. And then it's like, I'm never going back to that church again. There was a few that went back and, you know, they're there and it's like, okay. But part of me was since I was the loudest and I asked the most questions and I don't mean loudest I mean, I'm loud. Like, my decibels are louder than others. But I mean, like, I was the most outspoken. There were people that would ask questions, like, after me.
Okay.
So because I'm asking questions, it's like, yeah, what she said. You know what I mean? So I think I kind of
opened the door.
Made a little bit of a pathway for
Sure.
people. But then once I left, then it was like, anybody else gonna be loud and obnoxious? No. And my mom is still there, right? My grandma's still there. And so I hear stories now of some of the younger, like way younger, because, this is like 20 years ago. No, I'm not that old. 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So the ones that were, 8 or 9 when I was there, and it was kind of like, look at Adrianna, this rebellious whatever. Now that they're teenagers, it's like, hey. And it's the same questions.
Same questions.
It's like they're stuck in time. So
Same
questions, same kind of thing. And so now my mom is like, I see it happening now with the next generation.
Right.
And it's just like, what do you do,
One of the things, and I hope this is not sharing too much information that you've shared with me, but you've shared at times that you have felt like kind of the outside person. I don't remember the phrase that you've used with me, but like the problem. That's what it is.
Yeah.
That you're the problem.
Yeah.
And that you felt like that in a lot of situations. I think it's easy to identify, it's easy to place the blame for whatever the situation is, or it's easy to put attention on what we, quote, say are problem people, or again, troublemakers,
Right.
As a way of deflecting from what's really going on in the system. So Martin Luther, excommunicated, right? It was much easier instead of answering his questions. And they had a whole argument and debate about it, and then in the end they just kicked him out. They said, we don't want to deal with this guy. Now, they didn't realize that that would literally start the flame and of that part of the Protestant Reformation. That was the worst thing the Catholic Church could have done.
Yeah.
Because it just made things worse, right? But it was much easier to just kick him out. And, he's the problem. Everything else is okay in the system.
Right.
He's the problem.
As long as nobody questions anything, we're fine. And it's like, I have a question. You can go outside. Get out of here with your questions. Which I think, like you said, a lot of people have questions. They just would be like, oh, were we asking questions? They didn't open the floor for Q&A. And it's like, I didn't wait for that. I just asked a question in the middle of the sermon. Wait a minute.
So do you feel like at your age now, do you feel like, and it at times is hard being, quote, the problem, because you're not, but it's hard being labeled that. Do you feel more inclined today than ever before to challenge the system, ask questions, or do you feel, is there a hesitancy, or have there been times when there's a hesitancy because you don't want to be labeled, pushed aside, outcast?
Yeah, so last year is when I moved to California, right, from New York. So everything was new. New church, new job, new friends, new everything. So I had a lot of questions.
I remember.
Partially because I didn't know anything, right? I'm new. I just want to get to know everything.
Right.
But then once I started realizing, then it would be like, well, why? So there was, I probably still am a little hesitant just because I don't want to come across as I'm asking questions because I'm trying to start problems.
Right.
Because I'm not always trying to start an issue. Sometimes I am, or just to get people to realize things.
Right.
But I try not to be passive aggressive. I just, it's kind of hard. Not everyone understands my directness, so I have to try and figure out a way to ask the right questions.
To be fair, I don't feel like you ask questions to cause problems. I really don't. It's never like, oh, she's just here trying to stir the pot. She just wants to know. She just is asking the question.
And I think I feel better about it because I've just went through a whole season of everything being new, and I have asked a lot of questions about a lot of different things. And I've had people in my life that are like, hey, we're okay with you asking questions. And I'm like, oh, you are? Because people weren't my whole life. So it feels good to me when I have had leaders or people in my life that are like, that's a great question. You're right. Let's look into that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel accepted. Like because I've just always been this way, so I don't feel like, quote unquote, the problem.
Right.
Also, I offer solutions when I feel like,
absolutely.
Right. So it's like, hey, this probably isn't the best way to do this. Why do we do it this way?
Right.
Oh, because of this. And I'm like, well, I think the better way would be this option.
Which is the opposite of true person who's just trying to stir up problems.
Right.
If you're just going to throw a bomb, like ask a question and then leave.
Yeah, I'm not trying to do that. I want to know how it's going to be solved, and I already have 3 different ways that we can do it, whichever way makes you feel more comfortable. But because honestly, when it comes down to it, like the heart behind me asking the questions, like I'm trying to find sustainability, right? Because even like, if you look at like my mom's church, they're doing better, I guess, now than, I don't know how you want to measure it, but whatever. One of my concerns as a teenager was every teenager that grew up in this church leaves.
Yeah.
So there's not something wrong with every teenager.
No.
They're all just sinners and they're all going to hell and they're all terrible.
And,
It's their fault. It's like, maybe the system that we have is not working because now, so, you're born and raised in the church, you're a teenager, then you have like the men's and women's group, which is all the married people.
Right.
All of those people got saved in their 20s or 30s, already married or whatever, the majority of them, or they were there since the church started, right? There's just like the whole whatever.
Right.
When I was there was not one husband and wife group of people who were teenagers.
Wow.
And the church started in the 80s.
Wow.
So, like, at this point, you're 40 years, you should have
kids who go from teenagers to get married and stay in the church.
Correct.
And nobody.
Not one.
Wow.
So, that's questionable to me.
Right.
As a system, I feel like it's failing. Because and this is my example, which I don't know if it's the best analogy, but I'm like, it's like if our country was like America is known for having the best schools that teach the best doctors who then go move and live in other countries and are doctors everywhere else, but we have no doctors in our own country. Like,
right.
That means we don't have a good system.
Right.
Because nobody's here we don't have any doctors here. You know what I mean? Like, where's the cutoff and why?
Right.
So I'm like, can we just question it and just look at it? And it typically is like, they don't want to follow the rules. And I'm like, yes.
So
partially, but also, you have some that just left and like don't care about the church thing. They've really been wounded by church and they just kind of have fell off. But then you also have some where it's like myself, I just went to a different church.
Yeah.
And I went and I used my gifts and talents and grew, and God is literally moved me across the country.
Didn't reject God. You
didn't reject God.
In that type of a system, you could have.
Because I was like, because there was enough moments where I knew that God saw me.
Yeah.
I knew that God was speaking to me. I knew he was real.
Wow.
So I really want to go to church, but I also want to wear pants. So I'm going to go to a church that lets me wear pants, guys. And just let me rock. Let me wear what I want to wear and not have it feel like that's more important than your relationship with God. At the end of the day, the relationship with God is the most important thing. So I learned to be okay with like questioning myself, like, am I just trying to cause trouble? Because sometimes I feel like, let's stir the pot a little. But there's a difference between stirring the pot to bother people / like you have to stir the pot so like the noodles don't stick together, okay? Because if nobody stirred this pot for years.
Always great analogies. Always
Nobody
great.
wants pasta that's all hugging each other and they're stuck together. We got to stir it every few minutes.
Well, and one of the things and you see this in unhealthy places, families, institutions, churches, whatever, is that, again, they don't allow questions because questions then challenge the system. But thinking it from like a human standpoint and from an emotional standpoint, the people in those places, you in that church, even going back to, and this is the most extreme, of course, Rosa Parks and other black people in the segregated South, they were not being seen and heard and cared for, right? And in situations where where questions are not allowed, and you are not allowed to be different from this system. You are not allowed to stand out. You're not allowed to push back. You're not allowed to just ask questions. You as a person, it can develop a whole, a feeling, almost a state of being where you don't feel heard or seen or loved. And I like the fact that you said that there were enough moments where you felt like God saw you and he spoke to you. And that probably did save your walk with God.
Yeah.
Because that is part of our human nature. We have to be seen.
Yeah.
We have to be known. We have to be heard. We have to be loved as individuals. And when our leaders, whether it's Martin Luther or Rosa Parks, or you, if our leaders are not allowing us to be seen, heard, known for our differences, our uniqueness, and when needed, providing correction. But when we're not allowed to question or be different, it does not only really, really does a lot of harm to the person, it does continuous harm to the system. And again, if we go back to the life of Jesus, Jesus was hearing people, he was seeing people, he was caring for them, he was ministering to them, and he was challenging and allowing people to ask him questions and trying to bring people back to the essence of what it meant to serve God. And they didn't like that. And he was disrupting their whole followers. What is interesting, when you think about Jesus, is that despite all that he did and how well he was known, when it comes down to it, you really only have 120 in the upper room, right?
Right.
After all that he did, it was still too hard to be different from the system.
Yeah.
And it's not like under Jesus's ministry, everything exploded. It did then, on the day of Pentecost it exploded, but even then it was still a slow movement because the system in place at that time was the Jewish religious system, then it was the Roman religious system, and it was still hard to stand out. And yet, I believe it is God's desire for us to be unique individuals who do stand out, who are able to ask questions, who are able to challenge, and who are able to be us. I mean, what would the world be like without Adrianna and her 136 IQ?
Okay. Well, you'll never have to know because I'm here. I don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon, so.
Any final thoughts as we close this out? This, again, has just been kind of resonating with me, thinking about last week I talked about the church and institutions and talked about Martin Luther and what he did to push back against the system. And so it continued to resonate with me is thinking about what, these individuals who stood up, and again, they didn't try, Martin Luther didn't come in guns blazing and try to take down the church.
Right.
He just asked questions.
Yeah.
Rosa Parks didn't go to, the police, the court, whatever, and try to blow it up or try to use armed force or even use a platform. She didn't get up on a platform. She just refused to stand up
Right.
on a bus. And I think that all of us can do those types of things. And risk being maybe seen as different or risk being pushed on the outside. But we may be asking the very questions that others are asking. And we may allow for the opportunities for others to have their voices be heard. If we all stay quiet when things are wrong, when things are unjust, when things have to be questioned, there will never be change.
Right. I mean, I don't really know what it's like to stay quiet. I know that I've had a lot of people that say, like, because you did this, now I feel more safe too, right? Like one of my best friends always says, you take it to like such an extreme level that I'm like, anywhere under that, I'm safe. Because no matter what she does, it's like Adrianna's going to do more. So it's like, I'm good. Like, I feel okay doing whatever, asking whatever questions, because like you asked the question first, or like open the the door for people to walk through. So I don't mind, and I know that there's some people that are just like built that way.
Yeah.
And then there's other people that are like, that's not me, I'm not that.
Right.
But one of the things that I always think about is, I remember one time I used to work at a church, and so we had like weddings, funerals, all those kinds of things, right? That would happen all the time. And so we were at a funeral one time, and I was in the back doing the sound stuff or whatever. Yeah, tech stuff. And the pastor said, we're here today, we're going to read this eulogy, but it's like, you're still alive. Those of us that are listening, if you were to die today, what would yours say? And are you okay with that?
Right.
Because you still have a chance to change it. You could still change the story. How are people going to remember your name? What are you going to be known for? And that kind of stuff. And I think that, like you said, I don't think Rosa Parks and all of them were like, I can't wait to be in the history books. Right. It didn't matter about being famous, right? They were just trying to bring change. Right. But if I think about the legacy that I leave, my kids or my grandkids or whoever down the road can look back and be like, remember that Adrianna girl? She was crazy. But because of her, we can now have this, like that, where I feel like that's important to me. Maybe it's not important to everyone who's listening. Maybe you're like, I'm okay with not causing any trouble, just living my life and let me die in peace. Amen, whatever. But at least for me, like, even when I think about, like you talked about Jesus, he didn't always make a huge scene either. It just was like, oh, Jesus, this woman is caught in the act, and he's like, who didn't sin here? Right. Oh, none of you guys? All right, well, have a nice day. Like, see you guys later. And they all, like, left ashamed because they're like, man, you're right, we do have sin. And it wasn't that he was, like, cursing at them and being like, you're just as much trash. Like, he didn't make them feel bad to put them down, but he's like, you're trying to say she's not. The reality is you guys are the same, so slow down with your judgments. And I think that, there was the group of people that eventually hated him because he just kept doing that to them. Right. But really it's because you hate yourself. Right. And you're projecting down that's that guy's fault, Right. So you don't have to be the loud whatever person to stir the pot, right? Even though stirring the pot is okay. No, but you don't have to be that person. But I think like I said with Rosa Parks, just by simply not standing up, which was standing up for what's right and wrong morally, not legally, right? Just those little things that's like, hey, this is what I believe, especially as Christians, like you said, we have a certain standard of things that we believe. So I don't have to celebrate everything the world celebrates. Right. I can accept who you are, and I can accept the things you believe, even though we're different, and like agree to disagree. Right. But I don't have to go out of my way to celebrate and do all the things and make sure everyone feels comfortable. We don't offend anyone because we don't want to be canceled and all those things. Right. I can just live my life as an example. Right. And I believe that draws people to like, absolutely. Well, what is it about your life? How come you're not? They start asking these questions about you, right? Because you do stand out, right? Without necessarily
doing all these big things,
putting a spotlight on you or dyeing your hair different colors and being like, look at me.
Well, every Christian, I love what you're saying. Every Christian should essentially stand out. Yeah. Because there's something different about us. We have Christ, the Holy Spirit inside of us. And so
wait, you ready? There's a song every time we are on here. I always sing something. Today's episode.
Go for it.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. That's literally what I'm picturing while you're singing. Just you being you, being a Christ follower, is a little light that shines that people are like, to some, their eyes might hurt a little more than others, depending on how long it's been since they've been in the light.
Or how bright their light is. I think yours is.
That's a whole surgery.
Yours is pretty bright.
If you have a bright light, people who have not been, they've been in the dark so long, it's going to offend them.
Another good analogy.
And it's not that the light is wrong. It's just that they need time to adjust.
Right.
Anyways, with that, the end.
Well, thanks for listening to this episode of the Nefesh Podcast, episode 48, with the one and only, the number one troublemaker. No, not true.
After Jesus.
And hopefully some of this, as you reflect upon your own life, and again, just the ways that you can impact the world around you as a follower of Jesus, allowing, your light, the hope that is in you to be different, not so that you are intentionally causing problems, but sometimes in your life, living for Jesus with your morals and values, you may cause friction or things to stand out because you're trying to do what is right. And there's a phrase that just keeps running around in my head, and I know that I for sure do not live by this all the time, but just, do the right thing always, right? And it sometimes is just that easy, like do the right thing always. Sometimes we don't, it's a little hard to know what might be the right thing, but sometimes it's actually very clear. And so with that, thanks for listening again, episode 48. We'll talk to you next time.